أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلى الله على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم رضيت بالله ربا وبالإسلام دينا وبمحمد صلى الله عليه وسلم رسولا ونبيا رب أعوذ بك من همزات الشياطين وأعوذ بك رب أن يحضرون ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. Pursuing on with the Prophet ﷺ's legendary government military legacy, the era of Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq has already passed by a total of 50 videos, and prior to that a total of 30 videos of the Prophet ﷺ, the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, Muhammad ibn Abdullah, his military career, in 30 videos on the same channel. Now we're in the era of Sayyidina Umar bin al-Khattab on page number 399. Umar feared that the Muslims would start to indulge in life of luxury and ease. Umar feared that the Muslims would start to indulge in a life of luxury and ease, which would lead to regrettable consequences in this world and the hereafter. When people settled in Kufa and Basra, they went back to their old habits. Then the people of Kufa asked for permission to build with reeds, and the people of Basra did likewise. Umar said, "Tents are better for you because you are in a state of war, but I do not want to go against your wishes. What are reeds?" They explained that to him, and he said, "It's up to you." So the people of the two cities built houses with reeds. Then fires broke out in Kufa and Basra, and the worst hit of the two was Kufa, where 80 houses were burnt and there was nothing left. The people kept on talking about that, and Saad sent a group of them to Umar bin Khattab to ask his permission to build with adobe bricks. They came to him and the news of the fire and what had happened to them. They came to Sayyidina Umar with news of the fire and what had happened to them. And they never did anything or refrained from anything without consulting him. He said, "Do that, but no one of you should have more than 3 rooms, and do not compete in constructing lofty buildings. Adhere to the Sunnah and you will prevail." So the people went back to Kufa with the message, and Umar wrote to Utbah and the people of Basra with a similar message. Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu also advised that delegation and asked the people in general not to make their buildings any taller than what is reasonable. They said, "What is reasonable?" He said, "That which does not bring you close to extravagance and which serves the intended purpose." From this report, it is obvious that those people did not care about worldly show. All they wanted in their dwellings was the protection from the sun, rain, cold, and heat, and they did not care about having palaces or lofty buildings. Hence, they chose to build with reeds, which were the easiest things available to them, until they were forced to build it with mud bricks. But nevertheless, we see Umar bin Khattab imposing restrictions on them to prevail or to prevent them, in competing in constructing lofty buildings. This is an indicative of his farsightedness concerning the wealth which he expected the Ummah to acquire after the conquest. With these and similar instructions, he sought to check the Ummah's rush towards extravagance and luxury, and to make it live a life of moderation. From the words of Umar, it is clear that what is meant by the kind of construction in which there is no goodness is that which is luxurious and goes beyond the level of moderation. One of the greatest manifestations of extravagance is competing in the construction of lofty buildings, because construction consumes a great deal of a person's wealth and time, and if a person focuses on it, it will dominate his thoughts and become the major concern with some people. Umar was worried about the worldly gains made by the Ummah during his reign, and he tried to prevent them from indulging in that. He wanted the construction of houses to be a simple matter that could be achieved within a short period of time. Nowadays, building a house may take years and put a person into debt, which he does whatever he can to pay it off. Years may pass without him paying a penny in zakah, even though he is regarded as well off. because the palaces that most people aspire to require high quality furniture and other extravagances that drain the energy of the one who seeks them and keep him working hard for many years as he seeks to compete with others in worldly matters. In the midst of this competition, he neglects some of the essential duties of Islam, such as financial acts of worship, chief among which is zakah, and spending on the mujahideen and those who are striving in the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. People may also be distracted by such worldly pursuits from other important duties such as prayer and seeking knowledge. Next quote, that which does not bring you close to extravagance and which serves the intended purpose. This means that the kind of construction that is allowed in Al-Islam is that which does not bring a person close to extravagance and does not go beyond the limit prescribed in Al-Islam or go beyond the boundaries of moderation, the bounds of moderation, Umar did not strictly define that for them because each land has its own customs as to what constitutes extravagance, moderation, and stinginess. So what is moderate is to be defined according to the prevailing custom in the land among the middle ranks of those who are righteous in terms of worldly matters. Moving along now to page number 402. Adhere to the Sunnah and you will prevail. This means that adherence to the way of the Messenger of Allah is a cause of prevailing over the people and being giving power in the land. As Allah Ta'ala Jalla Jalaluhu says, Allah has promised those among you who believe and do righteous deeds that He will certainly grant them succession to the present rulers in the land as He granted it to those before them, and that He will grant them the authority to practice their religion, Al-Islam, which He has chosen for them. And He will surely give them in exchange of safe security after their fear, providing they believe and worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone and do not associate with Him. But whosoever disbelieves after this, they are the fasiqun, the rebellious, disobedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Umar encouraged people to shun worldly gains even though at the time the Muslims were competing with one another in the asceticism and shunning worldly gains. So how about those who came after them, who competed with one another in worldly gains? Umar was also keen to tackle the issue of materialistic accumulation at his time, when Persia and parts of Byzantine lands had been conquered and Allah had granted a great deal of wealth to the Muslims from the booty acquired through conquest and the taxes acquired from those lands. He delivered an eloquent khutbah in which he described the new situation and advised the Muslims to follow the better way. He said, and I quote, Allah Jalla Jalaluhu, all glory and praise be to He, has made it obligatory upon you to give thanks, and He has established proof by guiding you to the honor of this world and the hereafter, without you asking for it or desiring it. He created you from nothing so that you might worship Him. And He was able to make you the least significant of His creation, but He made most of His creation for you and did not create you for anyone else but Himself. He has subjugated for you everything that is on land and sea, and He has granted you goodly provision so that you might give thanks. Then He gave you hearing and seeing, so some of His blessings are granted to all of the sons of Adam, and some are granted only to the followers of your religion. Now these blessings have all fallen under your control in your time. There is not a single blessing that has come to any specific person, but it is where to be delivered among all the people. They would have to strive hard to give proper thanks for it, and they would not be able to do so without the help of Allah and without believing in Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You have been granted authority in the land and are subjugating its people. Allah Jalla Jalaluhu has granted victory to your religion, and there are only two types of people left: those who have become subjugated to Al-Islam and its people, who pay the jizya to you from the best of their wealth, who work hard and you benefit, and those who you are expecting the decree of Allah to befall them at any moment, day or night, whose hearts are filled with fear. They have nowhere to run or hide, For the troops of Allah Jalla Jalaluhu are about to attack and will soon conquer their lands. With the abundance of wealth continuing conquest guarding the borders of Allah's Jalla Jalaluhu's leave. By Allah Jalla Jalaluhu's leave, with the general well-being which has never been experienced since the beginning of Al-Islam. Allah is to be praised for the great conquest in every land. What thanks can there be in compassion or comparison to all those innumerable blessings? No one can give sufficient thanks except with the help and mercy of Allah Jalla Jalaluhu. We ask Allah Jalla Jalaluhu, besides whom there is no other God, to bestow this upon us, to help us to obey Him and hasten to please Him. O slaves of Allah, Ya Ibadallah, remember Allah's blessing to you and praise Him for His favors. Allah Jalla Jalaluhu said to Musa, bring out your people from darkness into light and remind them of the name of the days of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Quran number 14, surah number 14, ayah number 5. And he said to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, tribes, he said to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and remember when you were few and were reckoned weak in the land. You are taken for being weak. This is surah number 8, ayah number 26. If you had been reckoned weak, or if you had been reckoned weak in the land and were deprived of the good of this world whilst adhering to a branch of faith and believing in it, finding comfort in it and having knowledge of Allah Jalla Jalaluhu and His religion Al-Islam, putting your hopes in the hereafter, that would have been fine, but you were living a hard life and were ignorant of Allah Jalla Jalaluhu. If Al-Islam had been the only thing that Allah had given you and there were no worldly blessings with it, that blessing in the hereafter where everyone will end up, and you had faced hardship in life as you had did before you became Muslim, then you should be very keen to adhere to Al-Islam and support it against all others. So now, also, how about when you have been granted the best of this world and the hereafter, and whoever among you want to do so may have both? I remind you that Allah Jalla Jalaluhu knows what is in your heart, so you should remember the rights of Allah Jalla Jalaluhu and strive for His sake, and force yourselves to obey Him. Try to combine your delight in these blessings with the fear that they may disappear and be taken away. It is my duty before Allah Jalla Jalaluhu to enjoin upon you that which is good and to forbid to you that in which is evil. Al-Fustat. If Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas is regarded as the founder of Kufa, Amr bin As is regarded the founder of Al-Fustat. After he had conquered Alexandria, he wanted to settle there, but Umar ibn al-Khattab wrote to him saying, do not let there be any water between me and you, so that I can come to you. So Amr ibn As moved from Alexandria to Fustat. The first thing he did there was to build a mosque which was named after him, like the mosque that he built in Alexandria. Then he built a house for Umar ibn al-Khattab, which he probably intended to be for the Khalif. Umar ibn al-Khattab wrote to him and told him to make it a marketplace for the Muslims. Amr bin As built 2 houses for himself near the mosque, As Ibn Abdul Hakam tells us, Amr bin As laid the foundations for his house, which is now at the gate of the mosque, with the road running between them and his other house, which is attached to the side of it. He may have built one house for himself and others for as an administration building. After Umar had told him to demolish the house mentioned above, Amr bin As delegated a number of senior Sahaba who were with him to allocate an area for the houses of each tribe, and these areas were clearly delineated quarters. delineated like quarters or neighborhoods nowadays, but they were not so big as to have roads between one tribe and another. They were probably not roads as we know them nowadays, but rather small footpaths between one quarter and the next. The group of Sahaba was composed of Muawiyah ibn Khadij at-Tajaybi, Sharik ibn Sumi al-Ghutayfi, Amr ibn Mahram al-Khawlani, and Huwayl ibn Nashira al-Mu'afiri. They are the ones who allocated land to different tribes in 21 after Hijriya. Although we do not have room here to list all the neighborhoods, we may mention some of them such as Aslam, Al-Laytun, Bani Mu'ad, Bali, Bani Bahr, Mahra, Lakham, Ghafiq, As-Sadaq, Hadramaut, Tajib, Khawlan, Mud, Hajj, Murad, Yafi, Mu'afidi, and Al-Ash'ariyun. From these names, the researcher will see that many tribes of the Arabs and otherwise took part in the conquest of Egypt. Hence, there are many quarters formed of these tribes. Each tribe wanted to have its own area where it could run its own affairs. We also learn that the plans approved by Amr bin As to divide the land amongst tribes were well thought out. Each tribe built a mosque in the middle of its area. In his book Al-Fada'il al-Bahira fi Mahasin Masra wa Al-Qahira, Ibn Zahira quoted Ibn Zawlaq's comment on the early mosque of Fustat. He said that the first mosque was that of Amr bin As, then he listed other mosques that were named after individuals, after which he said, apart from those that we have mentioned, there are 233 other mosques that were built by Sahaba when they conquered Egypt, and they were built to accommodate each tribe. Amr bin As did well in his choice of location because it facilitated contact with the Caliph as well as being centrally located between the north and south of the country and close to the Nile. Sirit in Libya. After Barqa became a base for al-Islam in the west of Egypt, Amr bin As and his troops set out from there to Tripoli. He began with the city of Sirte, which is between Barqa and Tripoli, and took control of it. The Muslims adopted it as a base for expeditions to the west from 22 AH, and it remained a base for the Muslim forces and was a center for Uqba ibn Nafi, whose main aim was to spread al-Islam in the nearby oases of Fazan, Wadan, Zuwaila, and Sudan. Garrisons stationed in the conquered cities. Umar set up garrisons in the conquered cities throughout the conquered lands. Especially in Syria, they had barracks where the soldiers stayed, and in every camp there were stables for the horses, in which there were no less than 4,000 horses with all their equipment, which was kept in a state of readiness, so that if necessary the generals could head out for the battlefield within the shortest time, with more than 36,000 horsemen in one go in Syria alone. In each garrison a huge area was set aside for these horses to graze. Each horse was marked on its thigh with the words Jaysh fi Sabilillah, an army for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in accordance with the ayah, make ready against them all you can of power, including steads of war, to threaten the enemy of Allah and your enemy and others besides whom you may not know, but Allah does know. This is Surah number 8, ayah number 60. The garrison in Syria, 3 garrisons in Syria included the garrison of Damascus. During Umar's time, this garrison was commanded by 3 people who were in order: Yazid ibn Abi Sufyan, Suwaid ibn Kulthum, and Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan. The garrison of Homs, it was commanded by Abu Ubaidah Amir ibn al-Jarrah, then by Ubadah ibn Samit, then by Iyad ibn Ghanam, then by Sa'd ibn Amr ibn Hudaym, then by Umayr ibn Sa'd, then by Abdullah ibn Qarat. The garrison of Qinasrin, it was commanded by Khalid ibn al-Walid, then by Umayr ibn Sa'd. The garrison of Palestine, this was headed by Yazid ibn Abi Sufyan, then by Al-Qima ibn Majzaz. The garrison of Jordan, the center of which Tiberias was commanded by Shurahbil ibn Hasana. Okay, so the center of which was Tiberias was commanded by Shurahbil ibn Hasana, then by Yazid ibn Abi Sufyan, then by Muawiyah. Muawiyah took charge of the garrison of Damascus and Jordan after Yazid died in the plague of Amwas. The desire for jihad in seeking the pleasure of Allah motivated many of the Sahaba and the scholars among the Tabi'een to move to these cities, which were called Thuhur or Thughur, outpost, and spread the call of al-Islam and jihad for the sake of Allah and teach the people the Quran and the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Medina, Basra, Kufra, Damascus, and Al-Fustat all became areas which attracted people to come and settle in them, seeking knowledge and jihad or seeking to enlist in the army and be given a stipend or to engage in trade and learn new skills. Thus, three cities became beacons of culture and development in which all branches of knowledge flourished and all kinds of skills and provisions or professions developed. Excuse me. Moving on now to page number 409. Economic crisis. During the reign of Umar bin Khattab, the Islamic State was faced with several trials. This is something that all nations, states, people, and societies must inevitably undergo, and the Muslim Ummah is one of these nations. The laws of Allah do not change or alter. Among the greatest trials that were faced at the time of Umar bin Khattab were the year of Ar-Ramada and the plague of Amwas. In this section, we will discuss how Umar bin Khattab dealt with these crises and measures he took, how he beseeched Allah Jalla Jalaluhu and called upon him. In 18th AH, the Arabian Peninsula was struck by a severe famine, and drought and hunger grew so severe that the wild animals started coming into the towns, and if a man slaughtered a sheep, he would not be able to eat it because it was so scrawny, and the flocks died of hunger. This year was called the year of Ramada because the wind blew the dust around like ashes or aramad. The drought was severe and there was no food to be had. The people flocked from farthest deserts to Medina, from the farthest places of the desert to Medina, to stay in the city or nearby, seeking a solution with the Khalif. Umar bin Khattab felt the impact of this calamity more than anyone else, and he was well aware of the burden and of responsibility. It is possible to note the following steps that Umar took to deal with this crisis. Inshallah, we will stop here on page number 409 at the bottom, and we will pick it up as far as the Ramada, what Sayyidina Umar bin Khattab, how he dealt with it. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك وتبارك اسم ربك وتعالى جدك ولا إله غيرك ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون، سلام على المرسلين، الحمد لله رب العالمين.